Welcome back to Counterculture. Pastor Mark, most people don't understand how much we laugh before we do the show.
Right.
It's not nearly as
Right.
much
We're
as
not
in the
always
show.
serious like we are when we record.
That's exactly right. Sometimes we're waiting to be serious.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Speaking of serious, there's some prophets that were very serious. Some tough things happened to them. So can you turn with me to Jeremiah chapter 30?
Wait a minute. Do you want me to turn with you or turn to my Bible?
I was really actually waiting
Or do you
for
want
you
me
to
to
sing the
turn
song.
to my
But
Bible?
could you please
There
turn?
is a season, turn. Was that the song you were looking for?
No, I was looking for Jeremiah the bullfrog, but that's
Oh,
okay.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Yes.
So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 32. I want to start with 16. Can we do that?
Okay. Yep.
All right, beautiful. It says this: after I had given the deed of purchase to Barak, the son of Neriah, I prayed to the Lord, saying, Ah, Lord God, it is you who have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and by your outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. You show steadfast love to thousands, but you repay the guilt of fathers to their children after them. O great and mighty God, whose name is the Lord of hosts, great in counsel, mighty indeed, whose eyes are open to all the ways of the children of man, rewarding each one according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. You have shown signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, and to this day in Israel, and among all mankind, and have made a name for yourself as this day. You brought your people Israel out of the land of Egypt with signs and wonders, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and with great terror. And you gave them this land, and you swore to their fathers to give them a land flowing with milk and honey. And they entered the land, and they took possession of it. But they did not obey your voice or walk in your law. They did nothing of all you commanded them to do. Therefore, you have made all this disaster come on them. I love this section, right? Because Jeremiah reminds us of how great God is. Nothing's too hard for him. He's done all these things. He did all the work, right? He did all the work, and the people really did nothing, right? He took them to the promised land, took care of them, put them there. But the last part there, Jeremiah says, but they did not obey your voice, right? And they did nothing. They did nothing they were supposed to do, right? I think when it comes to thinking counterculture, one of the things that we need to start thinking about is the fact that frequently we're asking the God that Jeremiah is explaining, right? The God that Jeremiah is talking about here, the one who can do all things, all great things, nothing's too big for him, right? He can do it all, and we know that, and so we're constantly asking that God for things, bail us out of trouble, do all this stuff, while we do not do all that he has commanded us to do.
Isn't that a break in a covenant?
Things. It is a break in a covenant. So again, tell me why it is that we anticipate that God is going to do great things for us.
Well, I think many people have a Santa Claus concept of God. He's there to be our divine butler.
Yep. Answer that.
Jesus, I just said this in a sermon a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to put a little caveat on it there too. I understand that Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. Mm-hmm. But we are his servants. We serve him, but we act like God is there to serve us. He's our divine butler. We talked about this. You and I did a couple weeks ago about how people, it's the pastor's job to pay my rent and to get my groceries and to bail me out when I have, I'm not here to tell you the truth or in love. I'm still supposed to bail you out when you have a mistake. We do the same thing with God. Well, I got myself in this mess, Lord. I love other churches that put out signs that have statements that says everything happens for a reason, and then ellipsis, and sometimes it's because you did something stupid, Why'd that happen? Well, because you did something stupid, And I think sometimes we do. I know we do. I know I do. I do things, and I didn't do them God's way.
Yeah.
I didn't seek godly counsel before I did. I said, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh boy," which I have these wonderful words of grace I give myself all the time. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And then, so I think we have this idea that that's what God's job is.
Mm-hmm.
He is to prevent everybody else from being evil, but not me. He's to take care of all the evil in the world as long as he doesn't have to deal with my evil. It was interesting the other day. I found myself praying. I'm like, God, there's people doing bad things in the world. They need to be held accountable for their actions. And then I stopped for a minute. Oh boy,
yeah.
If I prayed for them, I prayed it for me too. I'm like, oh boy, Lord, everybody else, Lord, everybody else, not me. We have this idea that is God's job, is to serve me, because isn't that our culture? Everything's about me. Everybody's supposed to do everything for me. And I hate to say it, but we see this in the church.
No doubt.
We see it in the church.
No doubt. It's funny because
No one wants to serve. No one wants to be a servant leader. But that's what we are called to do, is to serve.
And even if we do get to the point of serving, what we really don't want to do is clean up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So again, we want God to serve us. I agree with everything you just said there. But we also want God to do the cleanup. I love parades. I used to go to the Chautauqua County Parade up at Mayville every year. And the reason I loved it was because I love the horses. Mm-hmm. There are people who ride the horses. There are people who watch the people ride the horses. And then there's one or two people who play cleanup.
Yep.
They walk around with shovels and clean up after the horses, right? I think everybody wants to either be on the horse or watching the horse. What the job you don't want is to clean up.
Yep, right.
Clean up in aisle 5 used to be my least favorite thing to come over the intercom when I was working at Quality, right? Yeah. Whenever there was a cleanup, you knew you needed a mop bucket, you needed there's a problem, and I think that's what we want God to do all the time, right? I want to live life the way I want to live it.
Yep.
And then I just want you to come clean it up, Lord.
Yep.
But that's not the type of God that we serve, right? Does God clean up after us? Yes, sometimes, right? But the kind of God we serve is the one who can be on the front side of it, right? The God who can do all things, right? And is all powerful. It's why we need to serve, right? One of my favorite medieval phrases is, we serve at the pleasure of the king.
Yes.
Right? That means when the king is unpleased, we go away. We're done, right? So obedience, my Bible tells me, obedience is what pleases the king. We need to be doing that, right? But we live in our culture right now where we really live and we serve, right, at the pleasure of myself.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And here's what's interesting is I saw someone post something on Facebook. One of my friends said something about, we shouldn't tell people who've been hurt in the church they need to get over it, or we need to come alongside them. I understand that. But sometimes, I asked my church one day, I said, how many of you have been hurt in the church? Almost everybody's hand, by someone in the church hand. I said, how many of you were that person that hurt someone else? All the hands went down. I've never hurt anybody. I am perfect. No, you have. And awesome. It's like, here's the thing. I talk about this with free will.
Yep.
I want God to control everybody else.
Yeah.
But he can trust me with free will. Because I'm good and I'm not going to hurt anybody. I can be trusted. The problem is, so I'm sitting here praying, God, you just keep control of Andy because I don't want him hurting me. But don't worry about controlling me, Lord, because I can do this. I got this. But Andy's sitting over here praying, Lord, control Mark so he doesn't hurt me. But Lord, you can trust me with free will. Don't worry about it. The problem is, whose prayer is God going to answer? He's going to, neither one of you are trustworthy with free will, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. How about if you just are obedient? You live at peace as much as it depends on you. How about you work through things? How about you go Matthew 18 sometimes, and when you need to, and do what you need to do. How about you just do what I've shown you how to do it.
I think that's that's where the battle is. Whenever we try to do life with someone else or with other people,
yes,
God knows our intentions. we know our intentions.
Yep.
But the people we're communicating with don't know our intentions. Right? They're left to only experience what the situation is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. All of the division, all the problems that I come with in having relationships with other people fall under that. Like usually it's about I'm perceiving the situation, but you're going based off of your intentions, right? And so I'm reacting to what I'm seeing you're doing out of what you know.
Right.
That's a hard place to be, right? You're totally in different boats at that moment.
Well, and here's the burden I have as being the funniest person I know. is I will say something that I know is funny as meant joking, but someone might take it seriously.
That's exactly.
Because they may not, and so I got to go back and I got to clean it up and say, okay, that's not how I meant it, whatever the case is. Right. And then when they find out that it was, oh, that is funny, it's like, no, I'm just joking. But anyway,
well, if you would say
because we're human,
right?
And we do it. People say, well, I'm not going to go to church because no one talks to me. They always ask me for money, and it's just not very good. Well, that's what happens when I go to a football game too. They ask me for money when I go in. Every time, they never let me go in for free. No one talks to me.
Right.
It goes too long, but that's okay. We can go do that,
It's all that's such a good point.
Because we got to quit making it about us. And there was something else I saw the other day. They said, Christianity's become where what the Bible says does not matter anymore. What matters is how I feel.
Yeah.
And what I think in any given moment, that's how Christianity is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be based on the Bible. I don't get to tell God how it is.
Yep, exactly.
He tells me how it's going to be.
Yeah,
and I kind of like it that way. I don't always agree with him. He has to help me realize that he's right sometimes.
We don't always understand it.
Right.
Jeremiah in this section, that's what he's praying for is help me to understand. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Help me to understand what's going on here. Again, when I'm in the process of trying to understand somebody, it's usually a bumpy ride, right?
Yep.
Because you're trying to figure out why and how come and what should I do and what shouldn't I do, and other people are reacting, right, based on what I'm saying and all of that kind of stuff. And Jeremiah is saying here, listen, if you want to really be counterculturers, you really need to have a good perception of who God is, right?
Yeah.
He can do all things, but you also need to have a good perception of ourselves. We just don't do what we're supposed to do. We're not obedient. So some of what happens if you want to be counterculture, be obedient to what God is asking you to do.
Well, and how many of us today, we're not told to take responsibility for our own actions?
Well, we fight so hard not to take responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it really wasn't your fault if they would have done this, if they would have done that. No, sometimes it is your fault, and the best thing you can do is own it and let God work through you to help you grow so that you don't do it again.
Well, and again, hurt doesn't have to be intentional to hurt.
Exactly.
So it isn't based on, I didn't intend to do this. I didn't intend to make you feel this way. It's, okay, you may not have intended to make me feel this way.
It's still
but
good.
I did feel this way. So now I need to take ownership of, all right, and we need to work through the whole thing. But we have a culture now who stands on, if I decide that what I did wasn't wrong, right? Not that it was right. I just decided what I did wasn't wrong. Then I can say however I want to say it to you, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to. But in relationship, it's even if I think what I'm doing is right, I still need to be careful about how I'm saying that to you.
But also understanding that I'm not responsible for someone else's triggers.
Nope.
I'm not going to change my spots necessarily, and I'm not going to quit being the funniest person in the world because someone doesn't like humor.
Right.
That's who I am. No, we got to learn how to dance that dance because we're in this together.
Sure.
And a bunch of personalities. You know, as being a pastor, that you and I don't have the privilege of walking away and saying, I don't like that person, I'm not going to work with them.
Yeah.
I may still not like him, which is funny. I had someone say to me, "Oh, Pastor, I couldn't have your job because you have to like him." But I said, "What in the world are you talking about?
I don't like you.
I don't like you." As a matter of fact, we have to love each other. People don't like Jesus sometimes.
The easiest way to hurt somebody is to try to be in a relationship with them. Right?
Yeah.
Hurt comes because I care. I care what you think. I care what you say. I care what you do. Right?
Yeah. If you cared, you would just take care of this for me. No, if I care, I'm going to help you. I shared a story about when I was working in our denomination's headquarters, and one of the guys I worked with, he was telling me about his kids were out there on their ATV, and there was a berm, and they got it hung up on the berm. The front wheels wouldn't touch, the back wheels wouldn't touch, and his wife goes, "You better go help them, get it off, get it unstuck."
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, let's just see what happens here." And in about 5-10 minutes, they had figured out, let's rock it till it caught, and they gunned it, and it went over. They got it unstuck, and they went about their merry way. We don't want anybody to struggle today, and sometimes that's what 40 years in the wilderness did. It was struggle to say.
I think that sometimes, that comes into play when we go to our parents and we say, "Hey, I really feel like God has called me to go to Africa to be a missionary." And we know what the response is going to be. Their parents are going to say, "No, we don't want you to go," right?
Yeah, because you're taking my grandkids too, and I don't get to see you, and now it's all about.
But we get hurt when that's their reaction,
Yeah.
rather than sometimes saying, I know that's the way you're going to be, so let me give you some time to work it through, right?
Yes.
But we don't want people to get hurt by the things and the choices that we make.
Right.
So we're constantly saying to them, no, I'm hurt that you're hurt. But instead of saying, no, I understand that you would be hurt about that. I understand you don't want your grandkids to go to Africa. I understand that you don't want us to go to Africa. But we're trying to do what God has told us to do.
Are you going to Africa?
That's my intro to, I think I might be going to Africa.
Okay.
With you. Going on a speaking tour. Hey, let's drop it right there for counterculture. We'll look forward to telling you about speaking tours coming your way. Have a great day trying to understand who God is. And when you understand who God is, then you might understand a little bit better about who you are.